Working with HTTP sessions slides. Right, so here we have a REST controller that plays around with a couple of session examples. And here we have a mapping that allows you to send an attribute value and set it locally to the HTTP session. So it sets the attribute, whatever you pass in as an argument, and it stores a random value that you can pass in as an argument. And then later you can retrieve that session attribute, again, if you pass in the same value, and then it retrieves that attribute from the session. And this also shows you how to invalidate. For instance, if you want to log out. If you want to log out, you want to invalidate and say, okay, forget about it that I was logged in. Just throw away the current session and don't remember anything about me. All right, so let's try it out. Let's create here a controller, call it HTTP session examples. Let's see if we can look at what's going on the server side. Let's create a brand new service, and we'll create it here, a new class, and we'll call it, what are we calling it? We're calling it HTTP session examples. There we go. So there we go. And we'll create it into a RESTful controller. So it will be REST controller like before. So this is REST controller. And we'll need to import that. And then we'll add all those functions that add things to the HTTP session, right? So let's grab first this one right here, set the session attribute. I'll just copy that. So what this says is that I'm going to be listening for this GET request from the client, right, with a URL that has the following pattern. Starts with an API, session because we're playing around with the session, set because I am going to set something on the session, and two attributes, right, two parameters that are embedded as part of the URL, right? So this might be a name, and then the value might be Jose, right? So, or this might be a to-do, and then the value of a to-do value, okay? Some task or whatnot. We parse those parameters from the URL. Right? These are only placeholders, right? They have named placeholders. And then what we do, we also ask for the session as a parameter to the function. And what we do is that we set the attribute value to the value that you pass in as an argument. Okay? And we only just return just a string concatenating the attribute and the value, just to make sure that we did set something. Okay? All right. We then let me fix that. So this is attribute. We then have a second function that is also mapped to a get, but notice instead of a set, right, we mapped it to a get. So if we set something earlier, we want to be able to retrieve it later. Okay? All right, so there it is. We want to retrieve whatever value we set in there, and we retrieve it, its attribute. And the only thing that we're storing in there are just strings, plain old strings. So we're casting it back to a string. All right, I think that's enough to play around with this. Let's restart the server. Let's start the server. And let's play around with the server. Okay, start it. Let's navigate to the URL that we just created. So it's this, right? API, set, and let's say name Alice. Right, and it returns with name equal Alice. So later on, if I want to be able to retrieve this, I can say get name, and it returns Alice. Right? So it's remembering that it's still me, right? And it's storing things in the session, even though I am refreshing the page. Right? It knows that we're participating there, and I can store anything I want. I can say, set to do, pick up milk. Right? So it stores that, even including the spaces in there. And later on, I can retrieve the to-do. Right? It retrieves. Oh, wait. Did I miss something? Oh, get. to do. Right, it returns the pickup mail. So it retrieves information that we can store in there, and based on that, this simple example, right? Based on that simple example, we'd like to be able to build on top of that is registering. So in register, let's see if we missed something. Here we have register sessions.attribute the current user, users dot add. Oh, okay, we have a list of users, current list of users, because we didn't have a database for this example, right? So we have a local list of users. So we add the users, we store the user in the attribute, and later on we're using Postman instead of, we didn't have a user interface. Here we're going to, this is the same thing as my check login, yes? I'm hitting the profile, and from the profile I'm retrieving the current user and I'm sending it back. That's exactly what I'm doing. And here I'm retrieving the profile as well. For logout, the only thing that we need to do is invalidate the session. It says, hey, the session that I've been using so far, where I'm storing the current user, just kill it, right? Invalidate it. Throw away that cookie that we've been using to talk back and forth. Just invalidate it, right? So that means that now the current user will be null. There's nobody mapped to the current user, right? So I've logged out. Now passing credentials. Right. So passing credentials. This is what we looked at earlier. In this case, we were storing the current registered users in a local list of users. We didn't have a database for this example. Instead, we had a list, an array list of users back up here, somewhere here. Yeah, we had a list of users for this example. Log out and that. Okay, so right, so this should work. Passing in the credentials from the fetch. Okay.